Welcome, you deep divers. Today, we're plunging into an episode that really makes you stop and think. It's called The Cost of Waiting from Naomi Saduk's The Abundance Blueprint podcast, our mission. Well, like always, it's to pull out the key insights, the real nuggets. Today, focusing on building foundations and, crucially, the price of delay. And Sadiq kicks things off with a question that, wow, it really hits home. She asks, point blank, what promise are you still sitting on?
That's such a powerful way to start, isn't it? It just lands immediately. Because let's face it, we all do that. We all have those things we've, put on the back burner, waiting for, well, who knows what sometimes. And this source material, it doesn't just mention procrastination. It really breaks down the difference between choosing to start versus just waiting for that perfect moment that might never come. We're going to analyze how Sadiq argues these choices really shape our reality, like literally build it.
Okay, so let's unpack this. A core idea she introduces is what she terms red energy. And it's not just a simple symbol. It's got layers. Think, first, the stop sign. That moment to pause, right? Reflect. Be intentional before you leap. But then it's also the brick, solid, stable, what holds things up. And finally, blood, life force, vitality, keeping things alive. She frames this as foundation energy. All three parts are needed. And she specifically ties this to Mondays, views them as the day to lay that first brick consistently.
Yeah, what's really interesting there is how that metaphor works on multiple levels. The red energy,
Yeah.
It's got that urgency, sure, but also vitality, like you said, and that core stability you need. And Sadiq, she really emphasizes it's not just about a single start. It's about keeping it going, like a pulse, continuous, that life-giving energy, not just starting strong, but sustaining that energy week after week, especially on those Mondays she picks out. It's about building momentum, keeping that initial spark going so it becomes, a steady flame.
And to really drive home this cost of waiting, the source uses Renee's story. It's laid out using star situation, task, action, result. Sadiq uses that structure, which you often see in job interviews,
Right, yeah.
to really break down Renee's journey step by step. It makes the cost so clear. And Renee's situation, it's pretty relatable. 2 years, 2 whole years talking about starting her consulting business, but always delaying, saying she needed more savings or for the kids to be older or just waiting until she felt ready.
Yeah, and if we connect that to the bigger picture, Renee's story is kind of a classic example of that psychological hurdle, isn't it? That search for the perfect moment, which, as the source points out, often isn't really about practical stuff. It's more like a reluctance, maybe even unconscious, to just begin. It's easier to plan, right? To think about doing it instead of actually taking the plunge. It keeps you safe, but stuck. Sadiq suggests it often masks that fear of the unknown, maybe fear of messing up.
Exactly, and that's where Sadiq's analysis really digs in. She says Renee's real task wasn't finding perfection, it was just making the choice to begin, even when it felt uncertain. But she didn't. Her dream just stayed, in a drawer.
What echoes another story in the source about Andre's letter that never got read. Another missed chance from waiting.
Ah, interesting parallel.
Yeah, and the result for Renee, she eventually grasped the real cost of waiting, and it hurt. Lost opportunities, real ones, like a specific contract she could have had, gone to someone else, and a partnership she was mulling over. It just expired because she waited too long to say yes. Oof. Those are concrete losses, which really makes you ask, what's the actual cost here? Beyond just the obvious missed chances. Renee's story shows both. Tangible things like the contract and intangible like lost potential. It's not just lost time. It's lost momentum, lost connections, opportunities actively going somewhere else because someone else started. Sadiq really hammers this point. The foundation doesn't appear when you wait. The foundation is built when you begin. That's the core message, really. It highlights the value of just starting proactively.
Yeah.
Agency, not just patience.
Right. Renee's story gives us that really personal, vivid look at the immediate cost. But Sadiq makes it clear this isn't just about Renee, it's universal. So moving beyond her story, what does the source say about the bigger price tag, the one that applies to all of us when we put things off? What's that deeper cost that maybe builds up over time?
That's a really key point. Stiet argues the price tag gets heavier the longer you wait. It's not just lost time or even specific lost deals. It's lost potential, that kind of compounds. And she suggests the challenges get more complex the longer you delay. Like interest adding up, but working against you. Makes you think, doesn't it? How many invisible costs stack up when we don't act?
Yeah, definitely.
Sadiq wants us to see that delay isn't neutral. It's actively chipping away at potential, like a slow leak, And that statement, foundation isn't found, it's built. It just reinforces that it's an active process. You had to construct it. It won't just appear.
Now, the deep dive also brings in something really practical, kind of unique, for overcoming that internal resistance. A breathwork exercise. It's very specific. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Simple, right? But the purpose Sadie gives it is profound. She says, every intentional breath is you telling your body, I am safe enough to begin. Seems like a direct way to tackle that feeling of being stuck, doesn't it?
It really does. And this is where City cleverly connects the mind and body. Her argument is that a lot of procrastination, that waiting, comes from a deep-seated, maybe subconscious fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failing. So this breathing technique, especially that longer exhale, it triggers the body's relaxation response, the parasympathetic nervous system. The source explains you're literally sending a biological signal, hey, you're safe, no danger here. Creating that internal feeling of safety is positioned as, like, step 0. Disarming the fear so you can take action. It's like bypassing the worried brain and talking straight to the body, making it easier for action to happen.
It's great that Sadik doesn't just leave it theoretical. She points to people in her own community who are doing this stuff, like Kathy Hare with the unique umbrella effect. Seems like she really embodies this idea of actively building. What stands out to you about how Kathy's work reflects the message?
Well, the source highlights that Kathy isn't waiting around for perfect conditions. She's creating that space for entrepreneurs. Right now, she's literally building the foundation for others, which is exactly what the podcast is talking about.
Great.
Sagake mentions Kathy's building her platform step by step, creating real events. That Veterans Ball on November 15th at Ruth Eckerd Hall. It's not just talk, it's tangible community building. Opportunity creation. A perfect example of foundation isn't found, it's built.
Making it happen.
Exactly. She's providing resources for people ready to start, and including Kathy's direct number, 813-363-7958 for tickets or sponsorships. That speaks volumes about taking immediate, direct action, not just passive listening. It really shows the blueprint in action.
It really does ground the principles, seeing them applied like that. And Sagik reinforces it by mentioning another partner too, LDS Photography. She calls them an incredible husband and wife team whose work you'll see shaping our future campaigns. Again, it's about active creation, building that visual foundation for what's next.
Precisely. These examples are so effective because they're real, tangible proof of the core message. You see people not just thinking about building, but actually doing it, supporting each other, creating their own paths. It really drives home the point about taking action instead of just waiting for the perfect wave.
And to wrap up our look at this source material, Sadika also invites further engagement. She mentions her book, I Found Out I Had Breast Cancer on My Lunch Break, which you can find on Amazon.
Yeah, and offering resources like that fits perfectly with the theme, doesn't it? It's about giving listeners tools, pathways to keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, take those next steps themselves. It encourages you to start building your own foundation, extending the idea beyond just the podcast episode.
And lastly, the source wraps with an invitation to subscribe to the Abundance Blueprint podcast itself on Spotify and share it, encouraging that ripple effect, right? Inspiring more people to get moving. So bringing this deep dive to a close, let's quickly recap those core messages from The Cost of Waiting. The source is really clear. Waiting costs more than starting. That just hits hard. And also, your foundation isn't a gift, it's a decision. It puts the power right back in your hands.
That idea of foundation being a decision, that's incredibly empowering. It totally shifts the focus from waiting passively to creating actively. And it emphasizes that even the smallest first step matters hugely. You don't need some grand plan to just begin. It's about owning your part in building your future, knowing every choice to start, no matter how small, is a brick laid.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, something to take away from this deep dive today. Building on Saadik's message, what small, truly immediate step can you take, maybe even today, to lay that very first brick of your foundation? How can you start blueprinting the abundance that this source material talks about? Thanks for diving deep with us.